Hey guys, what is going on? RedMaster here. Welcome back to an episode of Cards and Castles TV commentary. We've got some great matches lined up today, ones that I kind of thoroughly enjoyed as I watched them around the first time. I think you guys will too. So without a whole lot else from me, let's go ahead and jump right in to match number one. Alright, first up is joesnoid taking on skyan. Appears to be a Viking ninja taking on a pirate ninja. I almost forgot what the green symbol meant. So let's go ahead and get started. There we go. So yeah, like I said, pirate ninja versus Viking ninja. So we'll see what kind of decks both of these can bring out. Purple Viking has a lot of options, although honestly, Rider doesn't tell us a whole lot. Skyan looking to start things off with a hovel. That's fair. A good way to kind of counteract the Rider coming up there with the generated rat. Two taken from the castle, thanks to the Rider, followed by Filthy Peasant and a Dragon Surge. Peasant's honestly not a card I would figure a lot of people decide to go for, but you know what? Peasant's there. He's living his life. Let's see. 2 damage from the Rider Last Will. Captain was a good pull, so that actually very well counters the Filthy Peasant there, keeping the Southport alive by 1. Rider comes out to finish off that Captain, I think, though. Yep, there it is. And, of course, 2 more damage on the Castle Skyan, taking a bit of a bumpy ride there with his health. Already, like, 4 turns in, he's down to 14. Anyway, Joe follows up with an Ice Drake. Skyan's going to go ahead and pop an Armory and an Ambush to effectively counteract that Ice Drake. It did cost him a lot of cards, and considering that he doesn't really have other units left, I mean, this incoming Shadow Drake is going to be a big problem. Skyan doesn't really have a whole lot. Even the Ambush, as he just drew there, not going to be enough. We'll play the Stun Grenade to kind of hold off the Shadow Drake, and meanwhile reset his or set up some new hovels. He will negate one of those Rat Summons, considering that, he's going to block all the rows here, which could have been avoided if he had just walked up and placed the hovel. But, I mean, you want to go on defense, especially now, considering you got the Green Drake as well as the Shadow Drake incoming. I think he does a very... no, he doesn't finish it off here, but I know he does take out the Shadow Drake, which does weaken the Green Drake, but not enough, even with the ambush. He will survive by 1. And here's a big play from Joe, at least... pretty much how the match kind of is in Joe's favor the rest of the game here. We do see a Lightning Blade come out. 6 damage on face plus additional 3 puts Skyan down to 5. He loses one of the hovels as well, and one of his rats gets blocked off. He will take out this Green Drake, though, pretty effectively from the Alpha Strike rat. But now it's all about kind of getting to the castle here, and Joe's going to do a very good job at intercepting these rats. Pretty much all he has to do, really, because Skyan is really banking off the draw here. We do see a Lich right there. Lich goes ahead and clears off one of those rats, follows up with a Shadow Drake to kind of hopefully maybe get in the last bit of damage here, but then you see Skyan draws that Fat Bard, and he has to actually use it in order to hold off the Shadow Drake, so wasting the Bard but keeping himself in the game, that was that was the right sacrifice to make, that was a good play. Meanwhile, Joe going to go ahead and set up a trap for himself, Lich I think Lich being aggressive considering that he's got no other units, so maybe trying to activate the trap. Maddie comes out. Maddie does bring out a Lich of, for Skyan to use of his own, really. And, of course, Joe activate, or at least the Secret Dragon on Joe's side is activated, bringing out an Ice Drake from those rat attacks. The rat's not going to be enough to take down the Shadow Drake, thanks to the 2/2 buff from the Secret Dragon, but we'll see. I mean, Joe cannot really use that Ice Drake. Star Drake comes out now, does clinch the Lich out, does clinch the Lich out. That's a tongue twister. And, of course, Dwarven Miner comes in, takes care of one of the frozen rats. Another one being frozen up top, leaving Skyan with just the Maddie. We do see a Kraken come into play, though, from Skyan's hands, so we'll see how that takes into effect. Some of the rats making some trades here. Stone Drake taken out, Dwarven Miner weakened. Kraken does come out, hits the Ice Drake for a little bit of freezing action onto that Kraken. Joe with another unnecessary play here. He does bring out the Lightning Blade again, which, of course, kills off the Kraken and chains over to the rat. So, again, keeping the board to a minimum, keeping his, whatever control he's got to. And, I mean, if he really just waits it out, this will be the game here. Koru comes out, which could be a game changer. Koru is known to be a sneaky bastard, after all. E-Strike, this could actually win Joe the game if he hits this on Castle. Rat takes one of the hits, Armory takes another, and Koru takes hits. So, that's fine. I mean, Koru not really, Koru not being used, but also Koru being taken out is very good for Joe, being able to keep the control in this matchup. We do see a rat trade with the Miner. Mercer Execution took out the wizard. Some rat chips onto the castle. And we are running out of time here. Sudden Death will activate, and that gives skyan a very limited amount of time to do at least 19 points of damage. Aeroth cleaning off one of those rats. Swordsman and Kunoichi are in skyan's hands, so I have to assume he's going to make a big push, or at least attempt to make a big push here. Do see the rats, get aggressive here. Swordsman comes out. Yep, follow up to Kunoichi. Also right up front, which is what you need to do. And of course, goes back to Joe. Can he get the remaining 3 damage? Maybe he has like a removal for the rat, another Stone Drake maybe. Lumberjack comes out, does hit one of those rats on face. What will he draw? Okay, Aeroth doing that. Yenneroth. Alright, so Yenneroth is actually going to, I think, effectively clear off this game, considering that does freeze off skyan. We did see the surrender right there. So, playing Yenneroth was sort of like the game ender, since skyan wasn't going to be able to move any of his units until, his next turn. And by that point, Sudden Death kicks in and he's already lost. So, an effective way to just kind of stall out and win the game. So, big congrats to Joe for winning that match. I did think that skyan's... I don't know what skyan's deck was really capable of doing. We did see things like Swordsman, Koru, maybe some scope shenanigans out of those colors. That's, nothing surprising if it's scope shenanigans, but I don't know. I don't know what kind of, deck he was running, really. No one really knows until I tell you. But, yeah, with that being said, I think that was a great first match to start off with. Let's go ahead and get into our second one, match number 2. Alright, and for number 2, we've got Chaotic taking on Winman, it seems like. Well, KaoticxD, but I'm just going to say Chaotic. Just so much simpler. Chaotic versus Winman, so a little bit of Druid Pirate taking on some Crusader Viking. So both colors haven't seen a whole lot of action recently, or at least not. I could probably make the argument for green-white, but for the sake of it, let's just kind of see what both of these players have. They could be running some interesting things for all we know. Winman going to start off with a Lumberjack, plain and simple, and he looks like he'll get a little bit of damage, which is fine, although Chaotic with the Crusaders, damage isn't really a huge thing for him, at least this little early chip damage. You see a Call Beast from Winman, which is kind of strange, but he did pull out a Wolf, so nothing groundbreaking. If it was a bear, that would have been a much bigger threat to Chaotic, but of course, Wolf, not as big, sort of the low-end pull. Chaotic actually responded to the Flying Book to clear off the Lumberjack, get himself some extra draw. Do see a Bear Hog as well, so maybe Winman's got more of a beast-focused deck, or at least that's the thing I'm putting together right now. There is a church and a... What is people with peasants today? Did I just find the peasant matches? Oh, okay. Church from Chaotix will lead into a Dwarven Scope from Winman. And of course, smartly moving his wolf back so that way Bear Hog doesn't have to put himself at risk, take out the peasant at no additional cost here. Barbarian comes out, going to do a little bit of, I guess, chill down there, maybe hoping to lure in the Bear Hog. Manticore Hovel comes out into play now, and of course, not really, no. Bear Hog just doing a little chip, going to be completely negated by the time it gets back to his turn from the church. Meanwhile, Reclaim from from Chaotix will reclaim Winman's Rat Hovel, so now Chaotic will get some rats, but that's going to be quickly put to a stop before it even begins. Manticore Wolf take down the Hovel. Bear Hog do a bit more of a chip damage, and of course Killer Rabbit and another Northlands Wolf. So if you, if you haven't caught it already, I think this is definitely more of a beast deck. Dragon Knight from Chaotic side of the field, plus a Divine Knowledge, so he'll of course get some additional resources. Do see a Divine Knowledge, second one, and Hassan City Guard. Nothing that I think can really help him at this point, but we'll see. We do see a Fenrir coming out from Winman's side now, so even more beasts. If there was a Beastmaster, that would be fantastic. We do see a Lightning Blade, okay, and followed up with a Shaman. Hoodless Horseman from the draw, that does come out. What does it hit? Hits the bottom wolf, so all those beasts, unfortunately, getting a nice little buff. We'll see if that means the end here. Fenrir comes in, hits the castle for 7, Bear Hog additional 3, so of course, that does put Chaotic in a lethal position here, and the Spiny coming out doing some additional work here. But this Spiny is actually a big reason for Winman's, well, I don't want to say... You'll see. I'm excited for the upcoming play, and you'll see why as well. Manticore comes out, and of course, just lining the Manticores up, he's thinking there's no way this can bite me in the ass. But, always with Vikings, you gotta be careful of the chain. Look what we've got here. We've got a Rune Warrior, and we've got a Lightning Blade. So 2 Chain Lightning from that. Lightning Blade slapped on the Rune Warrior for additional stats, plus additional chain here, and watch what happens. Because the Spirit Link happens, We got a little bit of fireworks. So look at that. Yee! That is a big yikes. So Chaotic expertly using the fact that there is Spirit Link on the board, or maybe he just didn't know, but it happened that way. A beautiful set of chain events that just completely wipes Winman's board. And because Winman put so much onto the board, he's now down to 2 cards in hand and just a Fenrir on board. And a very weakened one at that. Granted, if there's like a companion or like a scope in there, it could be big trouble for Chaotic, because then you'd have the scope Fenrir, and that's not good, especially with 24 damage. But you don't know if that's what he's got, so we'll see. We'll see what Winman can pull out here. Who knows? He might be able to pull back. Who knows? Got a Northlands Wolf and a Ramrus, so Wolf takes the buff from Ramrus, Bestial Rage as well. So that'll be a good way to clear off some of the units here. Shaman getting knocked off here, Faithful Drake getting knocked off, and the buff going to both Fenrir and Ramrus from the Wolf. But of course, Church in the background going to go ahead and keep healing off the damage that Winman did earlier. So I think Winman does have to get aggressive here, but I understand that it's difficult for him to do so. We do see some guards coming out now. Cleric as well as Courthouse, which will be a big problem for Fenrir, especially since he has to trade to avoid some of this damage. Do see a Phantom Strike. Of course, that doesn't really do a whole lot, but it does keep Fenrir alive. You know, for however good that's going to do Winman at this point, just by 1. Divine Knowledge from Chaotic as Winman retreats the rest of his board there. We do see an Armory and a Guardian. A Guardian will come out, set up for the Armory, which we played right there. And of course, Cleric comes in, going to go ahead and hit the castle and start healing his own off of that. So yeah, definitely the shifts of, the tides have started to shift here, in this match. All because of that one Rune Warrior, who actually hasn't really moved the rest of the matchup, which is certainly a thing. We do see Ramrus make the trade with the guard to get rid of it, but of course Ramrus will die thanks to the Judgment. Chaotic brings out the Temple of the 5 Gods, do a little bit more chain action, so Harada gets cleared off. Cleric gets a little hit by the last will, but of course Castle is healed anyway, so now up to 19 to 6, which I don't know if Winman really has the way to pull out of this. I mean, gotta be some crazy movement to get Fenrir over, but I don't think it's gonna work out. We do see a bear hit the Barbarian, not gonna do a whole lot. Fenrir trades with Cleric. Cleric heals the Barbarian. Chain Lightning dealing to face, and of course that's going to be the end. But instead, of course, the little BM has to come out now, which I personally don't approve of. If you can end the matchup, always just end the matchup. Don't throw out every card that you possibly can, because that's just being a dick. So just my little disclaimer of, hey, I don't support BM. But with that being said, do have to throw my congratulations to Chaotic, yes, for that win. Using the Spirit Link chain to his advantage, everything in the right place at the right time. Lightning Blade Rune Warrior doing big things, and that will of course give him the win. But with that being said, we have one more matchup to go for the day, so let's go ahead and jump into match number 3. Alright, and for our final matchup today, it will be iAmFoReal taking on Jonah. So I'm just going to abbreviate that as real, just to keep it simple. So a Crusader Viking going up against a Viking Warlock, and we'll see how this goes. We'll see. I think Jonah is starting off, of course. And of course, it doesn't look like both players are gonna. No one's got that turn 1 move, that coveted turn 1 move. Jonah passes it back to FoReal after, of course, he can't do anything, since turn 3. Paladin comes out, so are we going to see maybe a dwarf deck from Real? Curious. We've seen a couple of those lately. We do see an Acolyte from Jonah taking up the top spot there, looking to maybe bait in the Paladin for some zombie spawning. Do you see a Blacksmith come in from Real side of the field? We'll see if, okay, Acolyte does take the initiative and strike the Paladin a little bit. Banshee to protect the Acolyte, so hopefully trading with the Paladin. Do see a Donic, though, which is another card we don't see a hell of a lot, and that kind of confirms to me that this is a Dwarven-based deck here. And that is, of course, permanent lightning, so bit of a tricky situation for Jonah, but we'll see. We'll see how he handles it. Necromancer comes out, can clear off the Paladin. However, I do think that Acolyte was a bit of a misplay. He could have moved it up to avoid losing the Acolyte, and of course he opened himself right up for an additional 2 damage from Lumberjack. So just my 2 cents there. Dino Rider comes out now, so yep, reinforcing the Dwarven deck idea. Of course, the damage being taken as I predicted. What will Jonah do in response? We will see a Dragon's Fires, of course, Blacksmith and Lumberjack being cleared off. Rider being slightly weakened, both in attack and in health. So we'll see if we can recover. If he has another Donic, maybe. We do see 2 Dwarven Miners show up. So I guess no Donic. We do see a priest though, so priest is going to be able to give Ryder just enough strength to make the trade and survive. Of course, being pushed back thanks to Necromancer's ability. Do see a temple from Jonah and an inner life. So of course, the idea that this is maybe a one of those Warlock Viking decks that utilize the Fear Chain effect, having units getting pushed back, and then some chain landing shenanigans, all that good stuff. Miner comes in for an additional 4 more damage thanks to the increased strength from Blacksmith, meanwhile everything else moving up as well. Inner Life proccing on the Necromancer, giving them a little boost there, but Mordok going to come in and actually do a lot of the heavy lifting here. Ryder gets killed off thanks to Headless Horseman's ability, of course. I think maybe he could have used that to kill off the Priest and use the Necromancer to kill off the Miner, but I guess I would have put his Necromancer at risk. We do see a Priest have to make the trade with Mordok. Brings out a Kraxus on Real's side, so we'll see how Jonah's able to take down a Kraxus. We do see a Cloak of Ice being used, so of course Kraxus will get a little frozen in his tracks. We do see another Banshee come out, plus a Blue Fire to take out the Blacksmith, which I think maybe he could have held on to, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is, I guess. So we'll see if both Banshees are able to, fortify. So that actually negates the freeze from the Cloak of Ice there. Holy Grail comes in as well. So of course, some questioning is going to do a little bit of work here. A little bit of chain onto the big man, but that's not a problem. Some more chain, which of course, that's sort of an explanation of, what the Fear Chain really does. Pushes things back to create some ugly chain scenarios, but, little by little if you don't have as many temples. So White Knight coming out from Jonah, plus a Shadow Katana, which is great because, of course, lifesteal kind of works when you have an attack and life balance, if you will. So, smart giving the Shadow Katana to the White Knight to utilize the lifesteal better. Windmage comes in, pushes that White Knight away a little bit, and of course everything else can move up. Burning Sun actually negates the Shadow Katana and the Inner Life on that Necromancer, so that was a good play. Mithril as well to reinforce everything up further, so again, very nice play. Mordok comes out. We'll see how much he can do. He'll hit the Paladin a little bit there, freeze him off. Or not, actually, not freeze, flees him off, I guess. Of course, Wraith hitting the back of the Question Knight, doing a little bit more chain damage, as you can see. White Knight actually going to make the engagement with the Kraxus, so that way, he can survive, gain an additional point of attack. Grotesque the White Knight, which is smart. Doesn't want to give Real any more points of draw, so of course he'll do that. And of course it goes back to Real's side of the board. Real in response brings out that Rune Warrior, which of course I guess is going to hang out up there for now. Questing Knight takes a little chunk off of the Wraith, but ultimately dies in the process, leaving Wraith alive. Mordok will connect with the Rune Warrior, kill it off, and introduce a Banshee to the board. Dragon's Fire burns off Kraxus just enough to get him killed from the Banshee. Windmage as well, just barely surviving just by a little bit. We'll see if Arcfire comes in to remove that. Looks like it will, so Arcfire, of course, clearing off all of Real's units, or at least finishing off the remaining one of Real's units. We'll see how Real responds. He brings out a Rune Warrior, which is completely fine. Intercepts the, or at least, not really to intercept the Wraith, it seems like, because the Wraith can, of course, fly over, so not in that position, but I guess he was worried about the chain, which, there's more happening, and of course, more from a second temple being played there. So additional damage, nearly tying things up for Jonah there, which is great. You love to see that. Do see a second Wraith as well, so of course, chunky little 4-9 boy there. We'll see how Real is able to respond. He brings up Mordok after moving the Rune Warrior forward a little bit there. Although Wraith will push back Mordok and of course chain him to kill him off and do more damage to the castle. Of course, the Horseman, no, that works out, yep. The Horseman kills off the Wraith, and of course Cleric moves up to trying to finish off the remaining points of Jonah's castle there. We do see another Mordok from Jonah that makes his third, I believe. I think so. And of course, that's kind of going to do it for his turn. He can't really afford to do a whole lot more in this position. Arbiter comes out now, so a big castle heal for Real. And of course, the castle getting even more damaged. And normally this is where some players would just call it quits, but here's what I like from Jonah. Jonah does not surrender, but instead just goes forward, and actually this works out very well. Cleric gets killed off, Lumberjack as well from the chain. Castle gets healed, but after a little bit of headless burst damage. We do see Headless Horseman come in for additional damage from the Chain Lightning. Rakanoth comes out, big 4 damage, and 5 is just enough to kill it even without the chain. Now, personally, to me, that's a great example of why you don't surrender until like the very last moment there, because Jonah did see a way out, even though he had 1 bit of castle health left. In my opinion, actually, no. I don't think he could have reached that way. No, so forget what I said there. But Jonah making a very good use of the situation regardless, pulling out a great win against Real's Dwarven deck, which actually did prove quite effective in the earlier stages of the game. But the more Jonah was allowed to set up with things like Temple and Necromancer, things got a bit, tricky, damage started to add up, and that's where you see all of these things kind of played out. So again, congrats to Jonah for that excellent win, and with that, that is going to do it for this edition of TV Commentary. Alright, with that being said, folks, I hope you did enjoy this edition of TV Commentary. Let me know what you guys thought of the matches down in the comment section below. Leave your thoughts down there. As well as liking the video if you did enjoy, being sure to share with your friends, and of course, subscribing if you are new to the channel or haven't done so already. Subscribing is the best way that you can support the channel and its growth. All you gotta do is click the subscribe button, no cost to you, and yeah, I think with that being said, that's gonna do it for me for now. So, till next time, guys, stay gaming.